Natasha Bennett sat in the corner booth of the coffee shop, staring at her phone screen as if it might explode. Her mother had called 6 times in the past hour, each voicemail progressively more dramatic than the last. The final message had included actual sobbing, which Natasha knew was completely manufactured because Victoria Bennett only cried at weddings and furniture sales. "You need to answer her eventually," Sophie said from across the table, not looking up from her tablet, where she was sketching logo concepts. "Your mother has my number now. She called me twice asking if you were lying dead in a ditch." Natasha groaned and dropped her head onto the table. At 28 years old, with her own apartment in the city, a thriving career as a senior graphic designer, and a carefully curated life that she absolutely loved, she should not be hiding from her mother like a teenager who missed curfew. Yet here she was, contemplating whether moving to another country might be easier than attending Sunday dinner. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from her younger sister, Grace. "Mom is planning your funeral. She has already picked out a casket. Please confirm you are alive." Sophie laughed, reading over her shoulder. "Your family is insane." "Tell me something I do not know," Natasha muttered, finally unlocking her phone. She opened her mother's messages and immediately regretted it. The screen filled with a barrage of texts about family obligation, respect for elders, and something about how Mrs. Chen from church had 3 grandchildren already and Victoria had none. The real issue was not just Sunday dinner. Victoria had been orchestrating an elaborate setup for months, trying to introduce Natasha to the son of her tennis partner. According to her mother, Raymond Kim was perfect, a dentist with his own practice, owned a house in the suburbs, and most importantly, his mother approved of the match. The fact that Natasha had zero interest in dating a dentist, living in the suburbs, or seeking anyone's mother's approval seemed completely irrelevant to Victoria. "I have an idea," Sophie said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with mischief. "Bring a fake date. Tell your mom you are already seeing someone." Natasha considered this. It was not a terrible plan. Her mother could not force her to meet Raymond if she was already in a relationship. The problem was finding someone willing to pretend for an entire evening. Her mind ran through possibilities. Most of her male friends were either married or would crack under her mother's interrogation within 5 minutes. "What about James from accounting?" Sophie suggested. "He owes you for covering his deadline last month." "James is perfect," Natasha agreed, feeling hope bloom in her chest. James was gay, charming, and could handle intense family situations. He had 5 sisters. He would be ideal. Except James was in Miami for his partner's birthday. He sent her a laughing emoji and a message. "Sorry, babe. Try Marcus from legal." Marcus had eloped to Vegas the previous weekend. Tom from marketing had food poisoning. By late afternoon, Natasha was running out of options, and her mother had upgraded from texts to showing up at her office building. Victoria stood in the lobby wearing her most dramatic sunglasses and an expression that could wilt flowers. "Natasha Marie Bennett, we need to talk." Using the middle name was never a good sign. Natasha led her mother to a quiet corner of the lobby, already preparing for battle. "Mom, I am not going to dinner to meet Raymond. I am not interested in dating right now. I am focused on my career." Victoria removed her sunglasses with the flair of a telenovela actress. "Your career will not keep you warm at night, Misha. You are 28. When I was your age, I already had you and your sister. Times have changed, Mom. Women do not need to get married young anymore." "I am not asking you to get married tomorrow," Victoria said, switching to her reasonable voice, which was somehow more dangerous than her dramatic one. "I am asking you to come to one family dinner, meet one nice man. Is that so terrible?" Natasha felt her resolve weakening. Her mother had perfected the art of making reasonable requests sound like basic human decency. "Fine," she heard herself say. "I will come to dinner, but I am bringing my boyfriend." Victoria's eyes widened. You have a boyfriend? Since when? Why did you not tell me? What is his name? What does he do? Is he Catholic? Mom, stop. You will meet him on Sunday. That is all I am saying. As Victoria left, practically skipping, with joy, Natasha realized what she had done. She had just committed to bringing a boyfriend she did not have to a family dinner in 3 days. She pulled out her phone to text Sophie an SOS when she collided with someone coming around the corner. Strong hands caught her arms, steadying her. Natasha looked up into the most striking gray eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car payment, and he was looking at her with a mixture of concern and amusement. I am so sorry, Natasha stammered, stepping back. I was not watching where I was going. Clearly, he said, and his voice was deep and warm with a hint of humor. Are you all right? Yes, just dealing with family drama. She paused, recognition clicking into place. Wait, you are Julian Cross. Guilty, he said with a slight smile. And you must be Natasha Bennett. I was actually coming to find you. We have our first meeting in 15 minutes. Natasha's stomach dropped. Julian Cross was the CEO of TechNova Industries, the biggest client her firm had landed all year. She was the lead designer on his company's complete rebranding project. This was the man she needed to impress, and she had just literally run into him while fleeing her mother. Right, yes, the meeting, she said, trying to sound professional. Let me just grab my portfolio. As they walked toward the elevator, Natasha's mind was racing. She needed a fake boyfriend for Sunday dinner, and standing next to her was probably the most eligible bachelor in the city. The idea was insane, completely inappropriate, absolutely impossible. Mr. Cross, she heard herself say before her brain could stop her mouth. I know this is going to sound strange, but I need to ask you something. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go ahead. Would you be willing to pretend to be my boyfriend for one night? The silence in the elevator stretched for what felt like an eternity. Julian Cross stared at Natasha with an expression she could not quite read. His gray eyes studied her face as if trying to determine whether she was joking or having some kind of breakdown. Natasha wanted the elevator floor to open up and swallow her whole. She had just asked her most important client to be her fake boyfriend. Her career was over. She would be fired by the end of the day. She would have to move back home with her mother, which would be worse than unemployment. I am sorry, she said, quickly, her words tumbling over each other. That was completely inappropriate. Please forget I said anything. Let's just focus on the meeting and the rebrand, and I promise I will be completely professional from now on. The elevator dinged, announcing their arrival at the 14th floor. Julian held the door open with one hand, but did not move to exit. Instead, he turned to her with the hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Tell me more, he said simply. Natasha blinked. What? About this fake boyfriend situation. I am curious. They stepped out into the hallway, and Natasha found herself explaining the whole ridiculous situation. Her mother's matchmaking obsession, the dentist named Raymond, the family dinner on Sunday, and her desperate lie about having a boyfriend. Julian listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. So you need someone to pretend to be your boyfriend for one evening, he summarized when she finished. To convince your mother that you are in a relationship so she will stop trying. To set you up. Yes, I know it sounds insane. I should not have asked you. You are a client, and this is wildly unprofessional. They reached the conference room where her team was already waiting with mood boards and design concepts spread across the table. Julian paused at the door, his hand on the handle. I will do it, he said quietly. Natasha was certain she had misheard. You will what? I will be your fake boyfriend. Sunday dinner with your family. One night. He pushed open the door before she could respond. but we should probably discuss the details after this meeting. I would like to see what you have created for TechNova first." The next 2 hours passed in a blur. Natasha presented her team's concepts for the rebrand, walking Julian through color palettes, logo redesigns, and marketing strategies. She was good at her job, great even, and she knew the work was solid. But she kept catching Julian watching her with an intensity that had nothing to do with fonts and brand identity. When he asked questions, they were sharp and insightful, pushing her to defend her choices and explain her vision. She found herself enjoying the challenge, the back and forth of ideas. "This is excellent work," Julian said when they finished. "I particularly appreciate how you have captured the balance between innovation and reliability. That is exactly what TechNova needs to communicate." Her team beamed with pride, packing up their materials. Sophie shot Natasha a questioning look. As they left the conference room, clearly sensing something had shifted but not sure what. Once they were alone, Julian leaned against the table and crossed his arms. "So, Sunday dinner. What do I need to know?" "You were serious about that?" Natasha asked, still half convinced this was an elaborate joke. "Completely serious. I have my reasons for agreeing, which I will explain later. But first, brief me on your family. What am I walking into?" Natasha sat down, her mind reeling. "My mother is Victoria Bennett. She is dramatic, traditional, and has opinions about everything. My father, Thomas, is quiet but scary when he wants to be. He will probably try to intimidate you. My younger sister Grace will interrogate you relentlessly because she thinks she is a detective. There will be at least 3 aunts, several cousins, and everyone will have questions. What is our story? How did we meet? We could say we met at a coffee shop." Julian shook his head. "Your mother will ask which one, when, what you were wearing. Keep it simple. We met through work. It started professional and became personal. That is close enough to the truth that we will not trip over details." "You have done this before," Natasha observed. "Not exactly, but I have dealt with enough corporate negotiations to know that the best lies are mostly truth." He pulled out his phone. "Give me your number. We should meet before Sunday to coordinate our story." They exchanged numbers, and Natasha felt like she had stepped into an alternate reality. 3 hours ago, Julian Cross had been her client. Now he was going to be her fake boyfriend, and they were planning to deceive her entire family. Friday evening, they met at a quiet wine bar downtown. Julian arrived in jeans and a casual button-down, looking somehow more attractive out of his suit. Natasha had changed 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress, telling herself this was just a planning session and not a date. "So," Julian said once they had ordered glasses of wine, "I should probably explain why I agreed to this arrangement." Natasha nodded, curious. "My business partner, Richard Morrison, has been trying to set me up with his wife's sister for 6 months. She is nice enough, but I am not interested. Richard thinks I am too focused on work that I need to settle down. He has made it clear he will not drop the subject until I am in a serious relationship." Julian took a sip of his wine. "Your proposal gave me an idea. If I am visibly dating someone, Richard will back off. We help each other. A mutually beneficial arrangement," Natasha said. "Exactly." He met her eyes across the table. "Though I should mention, I do not usually mix business with my personal life, fake or otherwise. You are an exception." "Why?" "Because you ran into me while running away from your mother, asked me the most absurd question I have heard in years, and then proceeded to present one of the best rebrands I have seen in a decade. You are interesting, Natasha Bennett." Heat crept up her neck. "You are not what I expected either." "What did you expect?" "Someone more corporate, stiffer. Most CEOs I have worked with treat designers like we are just there to make things pretty. You actually engaged with the concepts. Because good design is not just aesthetics. It is strategy, psychology, communication. Anyone who does not understand that is missing the point." He leaned forward. "Tell me about your family. Not just the facts for Sunday. Really tell me about them. They talked for 3 hours, long after their wine glasses were empty. Natasha told him about growing up with a mother who wanted her to be traditional and a father who encouraged her to be independent. About Grace, who was brilliant and annoying in equal measure. About family dinners that were loud and chaotic and full of love, even when they drove her crazy. Julian shared stories about building TechNova from nothing, the pressure of success, and why at 35 he was still single despite his mother's constant hints about grandchildren. He was easy to talk to, surprisingly funny, and the more Natasha learned about him, the more she realized this fake relationship might be more complicated than she had anticipated. Sunday arrived too quickly. Julian picked her up in a sleek black car that would definitely impress her mother. He wore slacks and a crisp white shirt, looking polished but not overdressed. He handed her a bouquet of flowers as she got in the car. "For your mother," he explained. "First impression. You really have thought of everything. I do not do anything halfway." Her parents' house was already full of relatives when they arrived. Victoria opened the door, her eyes going wide as she took in Julian. Natasha watched her mother's brain clearly calculating his suit quality, his car, his confident handshake. "Mrs. Bennett, it is a pleasure to meet you," Julian said smoothly. "Natasha has told me so much about you. These are for you." Victoria accepted the flowers with a delighted smile. "Please, call me Victoria. Come in, come in. Thomas, come meet Natasha's boyfriend." The evening unfolded with surprising ease. Julian charmed her father with questions about his work, impressed her, danced with his manners, and held his own against Grace's relentless questioning. He kept his hand on the small of Natasha's back, pulled out her chair, and played the attentive boyfriend so convincingly that Natasha almost forgot it was an act. After dinner, Victoria insisted on showing Julian her garden. Natasha followed them outside where solar lights cast a soft glow over the rose bushes. Her mother excused herself to check on dessert, leaving them alone under the stars. "You were amazing in there," Natasha said softly. "My mother loves you. I think my dad is actually intimidated. Your family is wonderful, loud, but wonderful." Julian stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I should tell you something. This does not feel as fake as I thought it would." Natasha's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when I touch you, it feels real. When I look at you, I am not pretending." His hand came up to cup her cheek. "And I really want to kiss you right now." "Julian, we should not." But his lips were already on hers, and Natasha forgot every reason this was a bad idea. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving her time to pull away. Instead, she moved closer, her hands sliding up to his shoulders. He deepened the kiss, and Natasha felt heat bloom through her entire body. This was not part of the plan. This was not fake. This was very, very real. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Natasha knew everything had just changed. "We have a problem," she whispered. "I know," Julian said, resting his forehead against hers. "But maybe it is the best kind of problem." The kiss in the garden changed everything. What started as a fake arrangement became something neither Natasha nor Julian could deny. They tried to maintain professional boundaries during work hours, but the tension between them was electric. Meetings about the rebrand became charged with unspoken desire. Every accidental touch sent sparks through both of them. They started finding excuses to see each other outside of work, dinners that went late into the night, morning coffee runs that turned into long conversations. Sophie noticed first. She cornered Natasha in the break room 3 weeks after the family dinner, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "You are glowing. This fake boyfriend thing is not fake anymore, is it?" Natasha tried to deny it, but her smile gave her away. "It is complicated." "It is only complicated if you make it complicated," Sophie said. "You like him. He clearly likes you. What is the problem?" The problem was that Julian was her client. The problem was that mixing business with romance could destroy both. The problem was that Natasha had spent her entire adult life building her career and independence, and falling for someone felt like risking everything she had worked for. But then Julian would smile at her across a conference table, or send her a text message that made her laugh, and all her carefully constructed walls would crumble a little more. 2 months into their secret relationship, TechNova was hosting a major event to unveil their rebrand to investors and the media. Natasha's firm had been invited, and she stood in the crowded ballroom watching Julian give a speech about innovation and the future. He looked confident and commanding on stage, every inch the successful CEO. When he mentioned the design team and caught her eye, pride swelled in her chest. Richard Morrison approached her during the reception, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He was in his 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Natasha Bennett, the woman behind the brilliant rebrand. Julian speaks very highly of your work. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Your company was wonderful to work with. Please, call me Richard. He handed her a glass. I wanted to talk to you about Julian, actually. Have you noticed any changes in him lately? Natasha's heart stuttered. Changes? He has been different, happier, less obsessed with work. I have known Julian for 15 years, and I have never seen him like this. Richard studied her face carefully. At first, I thought maybe he was finally dating my sister-in-law like I suggested. But then I realized it started right around when your project began. Before Natasha could respond, Julian appeared at her side, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture that had become automatic. Richard, I see you have met Natasha. Indeed. We were just discussing how well the rebrand turned out. Richard's knowing smile made Natasha's stomach drop. Though I suspect you two have been discussing more than just design work. Julian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Richard, this is not the place. My office, Monday morning. Both of you. Richard walked away, leaving Natasha and Julian standing frozen in the middle of the crowded ballroom. He knows, Natasha whispered. It appears so. Julian turned to her, his expression serious. We need to talk. Let me take you home. In his car, they sat in heavy silence. Julian drove toward her apartment, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. Richard is going to ask you to step away from future projects with TechNova. He will say it is a conflict of interest. He is probably right, Natasha said quietly. We crossed a line. I crossed a line. We both did, and I do not regret it. He pulled over suddenly, parking on a quiet side street. Natasha, these past 2 months have been the best of my life. I know this is messy and complicated, but I am not willing to give you up just because it is inconvenient for business. This is not just about convenience. This is my career, Julian. If word gets out that I was dating a client, it could damage my reputation. My firm could lose trust. Everything I have built could fall apart. Then I will end our business relationship. We will find another design firm for future projects. Problem solved. Natasha shook her head. You cannot do that. TechNova is about to go public. You need consistency in your branding. Switching firms now would be a disaster. They stared at each other, the impossible situation crushing down on both of them. Julian reached for her hand. There has to be a solution. I am not losing you. Monday morning came too soon. Natasha sat in Richard's office, Julian beside her, both of them prepared for the worst. Richard looked between them with an expression that was more thoughtful than angry. I am not blind, he began, and I am not a fool. You two have feelings for each other. That much is obvious to anyone paying attention. He leaned back in his chair. The question is, what do we do about it? I will resign from the account, Natasha said immediately. I will make sure my firm assigns someone else to handle any future work with TechNova. My personal life should not affect the business relationship. That is one solution, Richard agreed. Or we could acknowledge that sometimes good things come from unexpected places. He looked at Julian. You have been my partner for 10 years. I have watched you sacrifice relationships, health, and happiness for this company. When I suggested you needed someone in your life, I meant it. I just did not expect you to find her while rebranding our logo. Julian's eyes narrowed. What are you saying, Richard? I am saying that if this relationship is real, if it makes you both happy, then we figure out how to make it work ethically. Natasha's firm has already completed the major rebrand. The contract is nearly finished. Once it officially ends, there is no conflict of interest. Richard smiled. Unless you are planning to hire her firm again immediately, which I suspect you are not. Hope flickered in Natasha's chest. So you are not asking me to resign? I am asking you both to be smart about this. Finish the current project professionally. After that, what you do in your personal lives is your business. Richard stood, signaling the meeting was over. But Julian, if you hurt her, I will make your life miserable. I have known you long enough to know when something matters. She matters. After they left Richard's office, Julian pulled Natasha into an empty conference room. He is right. You matter, more than any deal or project or business relationship. I should have told you sooner. I was scared, Natasha admitted. Scared that loving you meant losing myself. I have worked so hard to build my independence, to prove I do not need anyone. Letting you in felt like giving up everything I fought for. Loving someone does not make you weaker, Natasha. It makes you braver. Julian cupped her face in his hands. You do not have to choose between your career and your heart. You can have both. We can have both. That evening, Natasha had dinner with her mother. Victoria had been calling constantly since meeting Julian, asking questions and making not-so-subtle hints about wedding venues. But tonight, Natasha needed her mother's wisdom. Mom, can I ask you something? Did you ever regret getting married, young? Giving up your career plans? Victoria set down her teacup, her expression softening. I need to tell you something, mija. When I met your father, I was planning to go to law school. I had been accepted, had scholarships, everything. My parents told me I had to choose, marriage or career. They said I could not have both. Natasha stared at her mother in shock. I never knew that. I chose your father, and for years I wondered if I made a mistake. I was angry about what I gave up. Victoria reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. But the world has changed. You do not have to make the choice I made. When I push you toward marriage, it is not because I think you need a man to complete you. It is because I see how much joy love has brought me, and I want that for you too. But not at the expense of who you are. Tears filled Natasha's eyes. Julian asked me to move in with him. I am terrified. Of what? Of losing myself. Of becoming just someone's girlfriend instead of Natasha Bennett, designer. Listen to me, Victoria said firmly. You are strong, talented, and independent. No man can take that away from you unless you let him. Does Julian try to change you or control you? No. He challenges me, supports me, makes me want to be better. Then what are you waiting for? Love does not diminish you, honey. It amplifies you. 3 weeks later, the TechNova contract officially ended. Natasha's firm celebrated the successful project, and Julian sent a case of champagne to the office with a card that simply said, "Thank you for everything." That night, he took her to the rooftop of his building, where the city lights sparkled below them. I have something to say, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Natasha nodded, her heart pounding. These past months with you have taught me what I was missing. I thought success meant building a company, making money, proving myself. But real success is finding someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway. Someone who challenges you to be better. Someone who makes every day brighter just by existing. He took her hands. I am not asking you to give up anything. I am not asking you to change. I am asking you to build a life with me where we both get to be exactly who we are together. Yes, Natasha said, tears streaming down her face. Yes to all of it. When Julian kissed her, with the city spread out below them and stars above, Natasha finally understood what her mother meant. Love did not make her smaller. It made her infinite. 6 months later, at a small ceremony in her parents' garden where it all began, Natasha and Julian promised forever to each other. Victoria cried happy tears. Thomas welcomed Julian to the family, and Grace gave a toast about how her sister finally stopped being stubborn enough to accept happiness. As they danced under the same stars where they had first kissed, Julian whispered, "No regrets?" Natasha smiled, holding him close. "Not a single one. This is exactly where I am supposed to be." And for the first time in her life, she meant it completely.